bring this a little bit full circle to the discussion we had a couple of days ago. One of the other things is so there are two parts to this, right? One is we shouldn't be in silos and we need to have good cultures in place. And I've worked in a lot of different professions over my career, and every profession tends to have sort of similar notes. So we say, if we look at the safety profession, or potentially the learning profession, or we look at the security profession, all of the support professions that go around any business, they have common themes. You know, we need to have a strong culture. We need to have leadership buy-in. We need to have a seat at the table. We need to have ensure that everybody in the organization is aware of the things that we need to do, and then build that literacy. And then we make sure that people can take autonomous decisions based on the literacy and awareness that they have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the themes tend to be very much the same. And there was a guy he was a business continuity consultant, and he said this back maybe 10 years ago to me. There is no business continuity culture. There's just culture, which has aspects of learning and data and business continuity and all of this stuff. So it becomes a management problem, and then we get symptoms, I guess, that come from this. But the thing I was driving at was, and it came up not only in the Brandon Hall conference when we were speaking this year, but it also came up at a number of other conferences that I was at, where we have learning or HCM professionals who are trying to fight the technical battle. And we have IT teams who are trying to fight the technical battle. And everybody's trying to grapple with the technicalities of AI. And I worry sometimes that the people part of this is getting left behind, because the HR and HCM folks should be looking at the people, should be looking at the human hierarchies, while the technical folks look at the technical hierarchies. And this is the worry. And this is where I was coming from when I asked the question, you know, is this a priority for HCM? Because HCM, I guess, should be focusing on what's the human hierarchy that goes alongside the technical hierarchy. So that's what I was driving at. Do you think that's a difference?
You know, what I think is, I think most organizations don't have, in terms or in regards to data literacy, I don't think they have consistent language and access across their teams. You know, I think, you mentioned IT. I think IT has a lot of HCM data, but oftentimes it's kind of locked up in fragmented systems. Then there's sometimes like the confidence hurdle, right? So even with training, right, people hesitate to trust themselves with data if they don't feel mappy enough, for example. So it's cultural, but also there's a technical challenge there as well too.
Yeah, I guess so. Taryn, are you seeing this disparity play out in your client set as well, or are people focusing on
very, very much so? I think it's a question of, I think there's always going to be pieces of technicality or technical stuff that the HCM piece has to focus on. Obviously, there's HR analytics, involves data. You have to look at that. As Mike was describing, that can be very disparate across organizations, fragmented. They may not even be able to get the data that they want fundamentally just because of how systems are set up. So the HR analytics space is probably always going to have that. They're trying to fight for the data around their people. So some of that might be driving what we're seeing right now when it comes to AI, because they're recognizing that there's some risks. There's also some benefits that they could potentially gain from using AI within the HCM world. Now, agreed though, HCM collectively needs to bring that people lens, because, and I'll pull Taryn's hat right now, I have seen this so often working with tech people. They do not necessarily have a people hat at all. They don't, not even in their house, not in their wardrobe, anywhere. So they have to have somebody with those glasses, with that hat, with that perspective, to be able to guide that part of the conversation. So completely agree that from a technical standpoint, IT standpoint, they're fundamentally going to understand from an AI, perspective, what AI can do for sure. They should lead that piece. HCM should lead the people side. There's going to be some merging that happens across both areas. But then that's where that collaboration comes in that I was describing, is that there's on both sides of the story or both sides of the house, whatever you want to call it, they bring so much valuable perspective that has to be a part of the equation in order to be able to address this efficiently, effectively. And otherwise, if it's not, it's going to continue to be siloed. They're going to miss a piece of the puzzle, whether it's people or IT. And then more things like this are going to happen, where we're going to see potentially large layoffs at organizations because they just buy a whole bunch of IT stuff. They buy a whole bunch of AI tools and they think, oh, we're going to be super efficient. And then however many years down the road, we'll see, kind of predicting right now, looking in the mirror ball, they are going to have some people problems. So agreed. I think that both lead the perspective in different ways, but then there's going to be people within both of those areas that might be able to speak a little bit to both sides, and they may be driving a little siloing, maybe not. I hope not. Ultimately, they do need to come together.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think data literacy is going to feel like homework in a sense. I think to flip that, and get out of this siloed approach, whether it's IT or your CEO, you got to really tie it to their pain points, right? How can we increase retention by, say, 20%? How can we increase sales? How can we have a better response rate to questions? I know here we're looking at an agent now because during our busy Excellence Award season, we get emails every minute, literally, even on weekends, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 3:32 in the morning. And I can't get to everything all the time. My people can't get to it either. And for me, I love great client service. When I send something in, I hate waiting for 30 minutes for a response. So I'm a little bit wired to figure out how we can do things quicker. So we're looking at using AI to solve a business problem, which is to make sure our clients or potential clients are getting the answers they need right away. I think there is ROI tied into that as well, too. It's really important.
Absolutely. That's some. For those who are wondering how to do this, we're talking about potentially agentic workflows and automation that can help you to start to respond to some of these things more quickly. If that's of an interest to you, then you're watching this, drop us a note and we can talk about it. So, Mike, to bring this back to what we were talking about a couple of days ago, one of the things that struck me every time we speak, not just this week, is Brandon Hall and Brandon Hall Institute has a wealth of research and analysis and case studies around nearly every topic, but around this topic as well. And one of the things we're talking about is how IT teams and HCM teams can kind of work together more effectively. What are you seeing out there in terms of whether or not there's appetite for that? Are people doing it well? Are people just not really addressing the problem in their organizations? What does the landscape kind of look like?
I think they're very interested in doing it. Sometimes they just don't know where to begin, right? And that's kind of the first step is like, start doing something, right? Like Bob Marley used to say something, just don't be quiet. So with the workforce, I think that's the right quote, Ashwin. I'm not sure. You're the musician. But an old friend of mine had mentioned that to me. And I was like, yeah, you have to say something, whether you're right or wrong. So with AI and IT and, these business leaders, start somewhere, start a pilot, get a tech savvy or a data literate focused executive that can help start a pilot program. Start a little bit small, but have something that's going to be a quick win. And by quick win, I'm talking maybe several weeks, not a year, not 2 years. And start getting people really educated on what it means to use AI, but also what does data literacy mean in conjunction to not just learning or HR, but the business.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That whenever we talk about literacy, when we talk about AI literacy, data literacy, even when we talk about the apportionment of skills and things like that, it's how it is relevant to your business and how it is relevant to your role. So there's always a relevance lens that we need to think about. So pivoting ever so slightly from that, this is all great stuff. There are things that we should do. Data